Bonjour everyone and welcome in. I see that you've chosen to install Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop 43. That's a very solid choice. I've heard tell that the big man himself, Linus Torvalds, also uses Fedora as his daily driver. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know which desktop environment he uses, but hey, that's a cool fun fact, right? Today I'm going to help you install Fedora Linux, get you up in gaming, make sure you have a safety net, make sure you know a little bit about how to use the system, and a few other things. And this is all in the context of a dual boot with Windows, or possibly any other operating system. So if you haven't yet, please go watch my How to Prepare Your Computer for a Linux/Windows dual boot video. It should be popping up right here. I'll also personally be using Ventoy to create my boot medium, so please go watch my video on that here if you need to know how to set that up. And if you're already back, let's head on to the first step, downloading Fedora. In order to download Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop 43, pop open your browser of choice. I'm using Zen today. Go to fedoraproject.org. From that page, you can either click on the latest release 43 or just scroll down to where it says Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop right in the middle of the page here. Click on the Download Now link. Now you can choose which method you would like to download and for which processor you're using. Most people will want to get the ISO file for the x86-64 systems unless they're using ARM, in which case you'd choose one of these two. Or a PowerPC, you'd choose that one. I'm going to choose to download the live ISO for x86-64 systems by clicking the download link right here on the right-hand side. And it's going to download into my downloads folder. And once that's done, I get to copy it onto a USB drive to boot up. I'm going to be using Ventoy as described in my how to install Ventoy video, which should be popping up right here. But you can use whatever method you choose to make a bootable medium with this ISO. It's entirely up to you. Of note, you could even just use the included Fedora Media Writer, which is right there below the ISO files on the same page. All you have to do is download the Windows and Mac version or the Linux version if you're switching Linuxes, install it, and then it will write the ISO file to a USB thumb drive. Pretty simples. But since I'm using the Ventoy method, I'm not going to worry about that today. But it is an option, and you're more than welcome to choose it, should you so desire. Once the file is done downloading, you can simply close out of your browser, open up your downloads folder to where the ISO file was downloaded, copy and paste that into your Ventoy drive with all your other Linux ISOs, if that's the method you're using, like I am. And then, once it's copied into the Ventoy thumb drive, you should be good to reboot your system and select Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop 43's ISO from the Ventoy boot menu. Then you're off to the races, and I'll see you on the other side. Now that you've successfully booted into Fedora, you'll be greeted with the Welcome Center. From here, you can click on Install to Hard Drive to get the installation process rolling, or you can click Next to take a brief tour of KDE and its features, just in case you don't know about them. For now, though, I'm actually going to suggest skipping the Welcome Center because there is a bit of a pre-install step that we must take before we can really get started, and that is to make sure there's enough free space on our disk to install Fedora. To do that, we're going to need to open the Partition Manager by opening the Application menu and typing in Partition. And as soon as KDE Partition Manager comes up, select that and click on it to open it. Find On the left-hand side under Devices, the disk that you want to install Linux onto. In my case, it's the Samsung 860. Your mileage may vary. Find the big partition that usually says NTFS. That'll have Windows installed on it, or whatever other operating system you wish to dual boot. I have mine labeled as Windows, so it's easy to spot. From there, click on Resize/Move. As you can see, this partition is about 1.82 TB. We want to make sure there's enough space for Fedora to live on our disk. So what we're going to do is chop that in half in the free space after to about 953,530.5 MB. That should be about half the disk space. Once that's done, click on the checkmark OK button. On the top left, click on Apply. It'll give you a confirmation window. Just click on Apply Pending Operations. Let it do its thing, and then click OK. Now that that's done, you should see two almost equally sized partitions now. You can close out of the Partition Manager. Now that you've finished partitioning and preparing the disk, you can play around some more in live mode if you want to explore the features and software, or you can go up to the top left of the screen and double click on Install to Hard Drive. This will start the installation proper. Depending on your system, it may take a moment or two to initialize. Give it a moment. Be patient. Once it's done initializing, you'll be asked to select your language on the top half of the screen here. Mine is English Canada, so that's correct, but if yours is different, feel free to scroll through the list until you find what you need and then select it. Likewise, in the bottom half, you get to choose your keyboard layout. Mine, once again, is correct, but your mileage may vary. Select yours and then click on Next. Now you can choose the date and time zone. You can have them automatically be assigned, or you can manually do it yourself by unchecking that box. If you prefer 24-hour clock rather than AM PM, just toggle this switch off and bada bing bada boom, you're good. I'm gonna put AM and PM on just for fun. Time zone seems correct. If everything here is satisfactory, click on Next. Destination is where we want to install Fedora 2. In our case, it's that partition that we created earlier. To choose that, click on Change Destination. Select the disk you want to put Fedora on. In my particular case, it's the Samsung SSD 860. Check that. Your disks will vary. Select the one that's appropriate for you, then click on Select. How would you like to install? Share disk with other operating systems? I like that they use that wording because you don't necessarily need to dual boot with just Windows. You could dual boot with other Linux distros or what have you. So that's a good language choice. You can see that we have enough space. If we didn't, we would have to check reclaim additional space. That's why we did the partitioning step before we went into the installation proper, so that we would not have to reclaim additional space. If your other operating system is on a completely separate disk, or you just feel like having only Fedora on your system and you have no need for any other operating systems, click on Use Entire Disk. That'll format everything and do the partitioning. It will destroy all the data on the disk, so be careful. Make sure you have a backup if you need anything. If you want to assign custom mount points and do some additional partitioning steps and get real fancy with your installation, you can select mount point assignment. No harm in that. For our purposes, we're going to share the disk with other operating systems though, because we're going to do a dual boot with Windows. So select that and click on Next. Storage configuration encryption. Do you want to encrypt your device? This is up to personal preference. I highly recommend it if you're in a super secure environment, or if you're using a laptop or anything that could easily be lost or stolen. If it's just your home computer sitting on your desk and realistically there's not a lot of security concerns, you don't need to encrypt your data. Again, your mileage may vary. Since this is just a demonstration, I'm not going to encrypt my data, but you do you, all right? Once you're satisfied with that, click Next. Now you get to enter your name and user information and everything. So put in your name. I'll just put in FTB for Flip the Bits. My username, FTB for Flip the Bits, perfect. Put in a nice easy password. Put it in again. Make sure you remember your nice easy password. You're going to need to use it a lot. Once you're satisfied with your user setup, click Next. Review and install just to make sure everything is set up to your liking, like your partition scheme over here. Make special note of the file systems used, Btrfs for / and /home. That's going to come in very handy later on. Once you're satisfied with this, click on the blue install button. And you're off to the races. Fedora will begin installing. It may take some time, so sit back, relax, grab a coffee, read the newspaper if you've still got those, and just let it do its thing. When it's done, we'll be back for the next step. Hang in there. Now that the installation is complete, you'll be given the option to exit back to your desktop and also to send feedback if you'd like. For some reason, they don't offer you the ability from the installer itself to actually reboot the system, which is kind of a weird choice, even though it tells you to do that to begin using it properly. But what are you going to do? Click on Exit to Desktop. You can continue playing around in the live version of Fedora if you would like, but I feel like it's time to switch to Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop 43 proper. So let's restart by going to the App menu, clicking on Restart, and once again, Restart Now, and I'll see you on the other side. Once you've successfully booted into Fedora, it's time to log in with your nice easy password. So type it in. And press Enter. Once you've logged in for the first time, you'll be greeted with the Welcome Center once more, but we can close this, as it is not necessary. Welcome to your new Linux, everybody. The first thing we gotta do is make sure Fedora and everything in it is up to date. Fortunately, this is somewhat easier than a lot of Linux distros out there because we can use the Discover store directly without doing any undue harm. So, open the App menu and type in Update. Select Discover Software Center. And from there, you can see there are updates, a whole bunch of them on the left-hand side. Click on that. Select the updates that are available to you. System upgrade is automatically selected by default, so that's pretty good. And from the top right, you can select Update All or Refresh to make sure there's nothing in the list you missed. So let's hit a refresh just for funsies. All right. Do note that this is 4.1 gigabytes, so if your internet connection is a bit slower, this might take a little while. But if you're ready, click Update All, and it'll begin downloading the updates and installing them. Little progress bar here will tell you how far along you are. You may need to be fairly patient for this, depending on your internet connection, as I said earlier, but once it's done, you'll be off to the races. So let's give that a few minutes, shall we? Now that the updates have been downloaded, it says they'll be installed after the system is restarted. You're going to need to restart your system for these to take effect. So click on the Restart and Install Updates button in the middle of your screen now. And I'll see you on the other side once more. Once the updates are complete and you're back on the desktop, you'll be greeted with another Welcome Center, this time introducing the features of Plasma 6.5, which your system has now been upgraded to. You don't really need to be in here anymore, so click on OK. Hooray! You're ready to use your system, right? Wrong! Before you start using any Linux system, make sure you have some way of rescuing yourself just in case you screw something up, break something, what have you. You want to be safe. You want to be able to jump back to a time when things were right and working and happy. And to do that, we're going to install Btrfs Assistant. Go down to Discover on your taskbar, click on it, type in Btrfs Assistant, and hit enter. On the right-hand side, select the Btrfs Assistant, click on Install from Fedora Linux from the top right. It'll download and install the Btrfs Assistant. Then click on Launch from the top right once that's done. Put in your nice easy password and hit enter. Then from the Btrfs Assistant main window, go to the Snapper Settings tab, click on New, it's right in the top middle. Configure the backup path. By default it's /, which is fine. You can also name your configuration, so I'm just going to call this... I'm just going to call it Restore Points for the heck of it. Hit Save. Now select the frequency that you would like everything to be saved. This will determine the number of snapshots that exist on your system at any one time. So I would say about 10 hourly is fine, 10 daily is fine. These defaults seem perfectly reasonable to me. Up to about 50 snapshots in total. That's plenty of restore points just in case you break something. You're also going to want to check these boxes down here. Snapper Timeline enabled, Snapper Cleanup enabled, just to make sure it gets rid of all of the old junk and doesn't fill up your disk. Snapper Boot enabled, that makes sure it runs all of this whenever you boot up. And then apply the changes. Once those are applied, you can go back to the Snapper tab. From here, you can create a new snapshot image, which we're going to do right now by clicking on New. Manual snapshot is the name, but you can name it whatever you want. Just click OK. Boom, you've made a snapshot. If ever you run into a problem with your system, say you're doing some fancy terminal stuff, or you run someone's scripts, or you install something bad that breaks something, come back into Btrfs Assistant, go to the Snapper tab, click on Browse and Restore, find the snapshot you want that was the most recent safe one, click on it, and click Restore. Once you do that, you'll have to restart your system, and you'll be back to where good times live. And that's pretty much it for Btrfs Assistant. That's the basic stuff. It can actually be configured a lot more than this, and there's a lot more it can do, but I'm just going to get you set up with the most basic stuff here, just to make sure you have a bit of a safety net going forward. Now we can close out of this and move on to our next step. Now on to the next step. Installing Steam and Proton and getting you gaming. Well, what happens when we type in Steam in the top left here? Wait a minute, that's not Steam. That's not Steam at all. That's because by default, Fedora is kind of a gated walled garden, and they only want you to install open source stuff, nothing proprietary, nothing fancy like that. To get Steam and a few other things, you're going to need to enable some third-party repositories. And don't worry, it sounds harder than it is. In order to do that, you just have to click on Settings from the left menu. Now you'll see a bunch of repositories here, like Fedora Flatpaks and Fedora Flatpaks testing and all of that stuff. Scroll down until you find RPM Fusion for Fedora 43, non-free Steam. Check that box, put in your nice easy password. Hit enter. Now, you'll be able to install Steam. If you also want to, while we're here, enable Snap support, you're able to do that by clicking on install here. If you don't like snaps, don't bother with that. But I figured I should just point it out since it's there. Now that you've enabled the repository, close out of Discover, and then reopen it. Hopefully now, the other repositories should be available to you. So let's type in Steam and find out. And there it is. Click on Steam, click on Install from Fedora Linux, and away you go. Now that Steam is installed, click on Launch, make sure you have your phone or whatever handy so you can use the quick QR code login. And log yourself in. Now that you're in Steam, you're almost good to game. From the top left menu where it says Steam, click on that, go to Settings, go to Downloads, scroll to the bottom, and then turn on Allow Background Processing of Vulkan Shaders. This will make sure that Vulkan shaders are processed in the background so that whenever you launch a game, you don't have to wait 20 years for them to process before you can actually start playing. It's very handy. If it causes your system to not work as well as you would like it to, on older systems especially, it can slow things down a little bit initially as it processes things in the background. You can turn that off and just wait it out normally. That's perfectly fine. I find turning this option on very handy for most people though. You can close out of the settings now. You're essentially good to game now on Valve's own Proton. Basically as good or better than the Steam Deck does right now, and the upcoming Steam machines. But we can enhance that even further with Glorious Eggroll's Proton or CashEOS's Proton. And to do that, we're going to need to get Proton Plus. In order to do that in Fedora, we're going to need to add the FlatHub repository to the system, which is slightly different than how we added the Steam one and other non-free stuff through Discover. This one's actually going to require us to dip our toes into the terminal. So I hope you're getting brave. I hope putting the Btrfs assistant on there helps calm your nerves. Let's enter the console. From here, just simply type in the following command to add the repository for FlatHub. flatpak space remote dash add space dash dash if dash not dash exists space FlatHub space https://dl.flathub.org/repo/flathub.flathub-repo and press enter. Enter your nice easy password. And hit enter, and you're good to go. You can now exit the terminal. Now that the FlatHub repo has been installed, close out of Steam completely. Close out of Discover if you still had that window open, and then reopen it once more. Now, type in Proton Plus, It's going to look, it's going to find it on FlatHub. Click on that. Click on Install from FlatHub. Give it a moment to install, and launch. You can close Discover now, by the way. From within Proton Plus, make sure Steam is selected. Click on Proton GE or Proton Cache OS, depending on your tastes. I prefer GE for most things. Click on the down arrow. Download Proton GE latest by clicking the download button on the right. Let it do its thing. Now, download the actual latest version of GE Proton, which is usually right under the latest version. Same procedure, click the download button, let it do its thing. And now you can close Proton Plus and reopen Steam by going to the app menu and typing in Steam, and then selecting it. From within Steam, click on the Steam menu on the top left, go to Settings once more. Go down to Compatibility on the left-hand side, where it says Proton Experimental, which is Valve's own Proton that I mentioned earlier. Click on that and select Proton GE Latest, and then restart Steam. What Proton GE does is it takes Valve's own Proton, throws in a few extra enhancements and fixes, etc., and just generally makes your games run just a little smoother, or may increase compatibility just a little bit more than the standard vanilla Valve version. It'll make your gaming experience in Linux just a hair better, in my opinion. Once that's done, you're ready to game. That's it. That's all you need to do. You just gotta go install something and play. Hooray! And that's Fedora KDE Plasma Desktop 43 in a nutshell. From installation to gaming, to making sure you have a backup safety net, to making sure you know how to install apps from both Fedora themselves as well as third-party repositories and Flatpaks. You're ready to Linux, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, let me know in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And also, don't forget to share it with a friend, family, dog, coworker. I don't know why dog was before coworker, but whatever, man. You do you. And have yourself a great day.